Welcome back to Knights of the World number 6. Today we have joining us Rocky Romanella. How are you doing today, Rocky?
Very good. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. So, Rocky, he's an author, he's a business owner, he's a manager, and he also goes around speaking to other high schools and everything, telling his story and inspiring people to kind of do something with their life. So, Rocky, let me ask you a few questions. So, can you tell me about yourself? Like, where are you from?
Yeah, sure. I'm from New Jersey. I actually was born in Manhattan, but grew up in Jersey
Mm-hmm.
and went to St. John's University. I actually went to school to be a high school history teacher and a baseball coach. And as I was working my way part time through UPS at the time, I realized that some of the best leaders were those individuals who could get their people to connect the dots. And so I never gave up my teaching coaching passion. I just did it in a different venue, which in this case was a business venue versus a school, versus a traditional classroom setting. And I think there's something to be said for that as people are beginning their journey. I think sometimes when you're a junior or senior in high school, you believe you're supposed to know what your major is going to be and exactly what it is that you want to be. And I would say more than 60 to 70% of the time, most people go into school with one vision and come out with a different actual profession, maybe, or going in a slightly different direction, as I did. I went to school to be, as I said, a high school history teacher and a
Mm-hmm.
baseball coach and spent 36 years at UPS.
So, can you explain a little bit more about your career, exactly what you did at UPS?
Yeah, sure. So when I started my job at UPS, my dad, rest his soul, told me two things that stuck with me my whole life. The first thing he told me is whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you, and then learn your job and learn some more. And so UPS had a promotion from within policy, which, I took advantage of. And so as I
Mm-hmm.
started to, I was a part timer through college. Once I graduated, I got the opportunity to become a UPS driver, just a great opportunity. I enjoyed doing that job. And then began that process inside of UPS, became a full time supervisor. And then as I was getting tapped on the shoulder for different responsibilities, I wasn't sure I was always ready. But one thing I learned that stuck with me throughout my whole career was that as a leader, you have to believe in your people at times when they're not ready to believe in themselves. So for me, for example, I did some really wonderful, interesting things inside of UPS. One of which was we purchased mailboxes, et cetera, and rebranded it to what is today the UPS store. I had that as direct report, made that recommendation,
Mm-hmm.
and managed through the rebranding, largest rebranding of a franchise in franchise history. We purchased over 20 companies and built UPS supply chain solutions. Actually led UPS's entry into the healthcare distribution side. And now today, it's a real joy, even though I'm retired now from UPS many years, it's a joy to see UPS delivering the vaccine. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they're doing that always makes me feel really proud, A, as a UPSer, and B, that I had something to do with us getting into that. So as I think the important lesson there for me was, you have to believe in your people until they're ready to believe in themselves. They may not feel like they're ready. And I may not have always felt like I was exactly ready for each of these responsibilities, but all I could hear my dad saying was, hey, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you. So I said, okay, if you guys think I'm the right person, let's go. And
Mm-hmm.
I brought the energy and enthusiasm and desire to learn, and they believed in me. And then at some point, there's that break even where your skills and your confidence match what the company's skills and confidence has in you. And then they step back, and as a leader, you step back and let your people fly. So I had 36 years at UPS, moved 9 times across the country with UPS, and then retired. After that, I was recruited to be a CEO of a telecom company. We built cell towers, upgraded cell towers. So we had a sale there, and then started my own business, 360 Management Services, where we focus in on keynote speaking, leadership training and development, as well as
Mm-hmm.
process improvement.
So, what are some of the obstacles that you overcame to get to owning that small business?
Well, the first thing is the knowledge and the confidence, right? Because I never saw myself doing those things. As I said, I went to school to be a history teacher and a baseball coach. But what I realized is it's so important for you to be a good leader. You have to be a good teacher. You have to be a good coach. So you got through those obstacles of learning. I think the one of the early lessons that I was taught was in my UPS days was, as I said to you, I was a UPS driver. And to me, that was the core of our business. And so what I learned from that experience is the fact that it's so important for you to be willing to learn the job from the ground level up, right? I was part-time for 4 years and I was a driver. So I did all the manual jobs inside of UPS and I understood how the system worked. So as I took on new responsibilities like, mailbox, et cetera, and UPS store, like supply chain, the first thing I did in all new responsibilities, especially those I didn't have a lot of experience in, first thing I did is, hey, go down and work the floor. So first thing I did when I got that responsibility with UPS store, went out and spent days in the UPS store MBE network and put an apron on and try to do the job as best I could from the ground floor. Now I was never became an expert like a franchisee, but it was important to understand what happened. As soon as I took over the supply chain side of the business, I went out and started picking orders and working in the warehouse to see how that went. So that was a valuable lesson for me. You're going to take on responsibilities that you may not always have the skills that, or the knowledge of at that point. You know, Go out and learn the job. Try to understand it from the ground level and recognize. To me, what I was doing was recognizing the fact that these were critical jobs inside our organization, and we had great people doing them. I never professed to be an expert. What I professed was I have a ton of respect for what you do and how you do it, and I want to learn it from the best, those individuals who do it every day.
That's pretty great, you know. So did you so how was was it hard getting that CEO position at the telecom company?
Well, I had 36 years, and I had a lot of experience in integration of companies after acquisitions, and so the telecom company was a company that was going through growth. They had done it through acquisitions, and I was very strong at building culture, uh, building teams. And so at that time, when you're tying together different companies that you're buying, you really have to understand the cultural aspect of the company you're purchasing, as well as, of course, the company you're in, and how do you let those people feel good about the fact that they were just purchased, but they're part of the family, and how you integrate them. So this was an opportunity because they were going through growth and they were going through a lot of acquisitions, where my core strength, I think, really kind of resonated and was a good opportunity for me. And it was great because I always had that vision of, as you're growing up inside an organization, you always think, well, someday if I ran this place, what would I do and how would I do it? So this
Mm-hmm.
gave me the chance to do that. And so I enjoyed it. It was a great company. We had a sale, which was wonderful for the company. Still a very vibrant company today, and it's doing very well, very well. And so it was a lot of fun, but it was also a big responsibility.
So to I kind of want to kind of drive the topic off to something else that you've done. So I saw that you've read a book before. I mean, wrote a
Oh,
book. Sorry.
yeah, that's okay.
It's
I've
it's
read one of those too, though. I've read a few of them.
yeah, just a few, you know. So I saw that you've written a book about things, and so can you explain to us what the book is really about?
Yeah. So for me, I have a great, belief in this concept of legacy. Did you leave things a little better than you found them? Are people better because of their time with you? Are your customers better because of their interaction with your company? And so for me, a legacy is this concept of leaving things a little bit better. And so as I, moved on from the CEO role and now was starting my own company, I wanted to make sure that I was still participating in that legacy concept of leaving things a little better than I found them. So as I was doing my keynote speaking and training, I was getting asked quite often, hey, do you have a book? Is there something that can help support your speeches or your training? And so I thought the book would be a good way from a legacy perspective to maybe leave things a little bit better than I found them. If there were opportunities in the book for people to learn, maybe have a few aha moments, you know, maybe learn from some of the lessons that I learned along the way, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak. I thought it would be very helpful for for people as well. So the book is sort of my journey in business. It's written in the third person. Why third person? Well, as I was growing and developing inside of UPS, I never liked the feeling when someone would bring me a new idea. I would say, that's a great idea, but what if this or what if that? And whenever I
Mm-hmm.
did the what if, it wasn't because I didn't think they had a great idea or that they didn't do their homework. It was just part of the conversation. But their face showed that they thought I maybe didn't think they were prepared, or that they hadn't, kind of thought it all the way through. And that wasn't my intention at all. My intention was to challenge them, not to stop at the first right answer, maybe to look past what they currently did, maybe look at it from a little deeper, wider perspective. And so I created this character, Joe Scafone. I would say, that's a
Mm-hmm.
great idea, but you think Joe Scafone thinks that's a good idea? And we would all smile, but it was a way for me to challenge them in a positive way. And so I wrote the book in this third person, Joe Scafone, because I never wanted to write a book saying, well, I did this, or I had that adventure here, or I think you should think about it this way. It was easier and it was more comfortable for me to write it in a third person. And so the lessons, the stories, and the many, kind of journeys, the many journeys along the way were just a fun way to do it in a third person.
Mm-hmm. So, like, so was it fun writing your book? Like, how hard was it to write it?
Well, I'll tell you what, the hardest part is the start, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the book, you're staring at a piece of paper and you're wondering, is anybody going to read my book? Is anybody going to, what can I say? I never thought of myself as an author. And so I started to write chapters. I started to write, individual chapters about individual lessons or individual things I learned. And then one of the chapters is on this concept of tightening the lug nuts. And of course, that's the name of the book, Tighten the Lug Nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And the story simply is that when the lug nuts are loose on the vehicle, it's a much broader story in the book. But simply put, when the lug nuts are on the vehicle or loose, they're important. You could simply go over and tighten them in 5 minutes. But you get distracted, other things come up, and now you're working on something else that it may be you view as a bigger, more important item. But those lug nuts are still loose. And a few days later, you get a call or somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, by the way, that vehicle there looks like the front wheel may come off. And so now what was important yesterday is now urgent. And one of the things I think that people will find out as they grow and develop in their careers and in their personal life is you can only handle so many urgent things. You can only juggle so many urgent balls.
Mm-hmm.
So don't allow important things, loose lug nuts when they were loose, to become urgent because you didn't tighten them and then put more strain and pressure on yourself. So tighten your lug nuts. Don't allow important things to become urgent. So that's one of the chapters in the book. And then each chapter can stand on its own, but it's also part of a broader story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because I like the tighten the lug nuts. I was like, that's kind of a cool title, and I was like, wow. You think about it, you might think it's a metaphor, but it's also like an actual thing. It's like if you don't tighten your lug nuts, you'll have a big problem later, and
Absolutely.
it's a metaphor and it's a real thing that can happen.
Yeah, no. And as we were talking before, I get the opportunity to speak at high schools, juniors and seniors, or college juniors and seniors, or maybe we'll do some workshops in a company with new supervisor orientation. And it's funny, I'll we'll go through the book, we'll go through that story, and then later on when I see people like in our local town here, it's like, hey, Miss Romanella, hey, no loose lug nuts here, and so I think it's a fun way of reminding people to don't allow important things to become urgent. Just tighten the lug nuts.
Mm-hmm. So how is it like talking to juniors and seniors and stuff at high schools?
Oh, I enjoy it. And it's funny. I get, you ask for some pretty consistent questions, and they always ask, hey, know what you know today. What would you do different? Do you have any recommendations? And I would tell you a couple things. Number one is think of the word you want someone to use to describe you at the end of your career. Think of that word. And if you think about it, for me, the word for me was always thoughtful. I wanted to be considered a thoughtful leader. And if I'm in a group, I would, call out and say, hey, what's a word you would want someone to use to describe
Mm-hmm.
you? And some people say energetic, aggressive, decisive. Some people will say rich. They all have, what's that word? And then if you think about it, you spend your whole career without even realizing it, building the mosaic to that word. So for me, thoughtful was the word. And so, as I made decisions, I wanted to think of them from its widest consequences. I talk about this concept of balanced leadership. I want to think about it from the three key constituents. So I want to be thoughtful. Is our people represented? in this decision process? Are our customers represented? Or our shareholder stakeholders represented? And that's a
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful approach. So what if your word was innovative, for example, if you think about it, you're going to be the cutting edge person. You're going to be leading in technology. And even though you may not think about it that way all the time, all the things that you do lead you to be one of those innovative, creative people. And so innovative could be that word. Some people it's integrity. So that would be the first thing I would do. Think of that as you're starting your career or your journey in life. Think about that word that you want people to use to describe you at the end of your career. And then if you think about it and you get that word, that becomes your brand. That becomes your brand promise. And if you think about any products out there that, if I yell dilly dilly, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Or, you
Mm-hmm.
think about all those commercials or the jingles that you hear, State Farm now with Jake. And so that becomes the brand and it becomes the brand promise. And so you as an individual, you have a brand and you have a brand promise, right? And so when you break that brand or have a, unfortunate incident that happens and now you have a disgruntled person that's using your brand. And so once you break that brand promise, it's so hard to get that brand back. It's so hard to get that credibility back. And
Mm-hmm.
so you as a person, you have your own personal brand, and that's so important. So as you're growing and developing your, think of that word, and then you want to understand that that becomes your brand. And the last thing I would say is ask yourself 3 key questions, and you have to be able to answer these three questions in the confines of your own heart and conscience. Number 1 is, who am I? Number 2 is, what do I stand for? And those two, I think you'll be able to articulate. It's no different in a company. Who are we as a company? What do we stand for as a company? And companies have mission statements, brand statements. They have, values and ethics posted all over. Question number 3 is the one that you really have to think through and understand. And question number 3 is, what won't I compromise? And that's so important. And if you think about people who've got themselves in trouble or companies that have gotten themselves in trouble, they may have known who they were. They may have known what they stand for. But number 3 is the one that's so important. What won't I compromise? And that's the one you're going to get challenged on. And if you're challenged and you don't answer properly, you don't answer the bell properly, or you violate the things that you won't compromise, that's when you get yourself in trouble or your company gets in trouble. And that's when you really kind of violate your brand promise and you violate who you are as a person and what you stand for. So I would say quickly in summary, the first thing is think of that word you want people to use to describe you at the end of your career, and then answer those 3 questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? And what are the things I won't compromise?
That's some really good advice, and I know I took that to heart, and I bet a lot of people at home also took that to heart and really listened to those words, because it's really good advice coming from a person that's used that their whole life. And I'd really like to thank you guys for watching, and right here up on the screen is Rocky's book. You can buy it here. And then right here are our socials. Follow us on our Twitter and Instagram to get updates on episodes and everything. And a like and subscribe is always accepted. And we also would love to hear you comment in the comment section, because I bet Rocky would love to hear from you guys. And me personally would love to hear how you thought about the episode. So Rocky, I'd like to thank you for coming out here and telling your story and inspiring everyone to maybe do something that they want to do in their life, and it could become a person that runs a business or is a CEO. And because I know people that want to do that, and I think that you've just helped them, guide them in the right direction.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming out here, and hope you guys have a good day. See ya.
Yep. Pleasure being on the show. And if any additional information you need, just go to tightentheLugnuts.com. It's as simple as that. And there's some more podcasts, some more videos if that's helpful for them as well.
See ya.